Good morning. It's a lovely morning, and I haven't been down the allotment for a few days because we've had absolutely torrential rain, and does mean that the soil might be very wet. But I wanted to share with you a faux pas and a plonker thing that I've done, and I'll show you now. So I put up this glass frame to grow our broad beans in because it was really successful last year, just having that little bit of protection. And I composted it, but then we had a bit of rain and the compost is so wet I can't walk on it. So I thought, okay, I'll leave it for a couple of days to just let it dry out a bit, and then I'll plant the broad beans then. And then of course we had a few days of absolutely torrential rain, so it's going to be even worse. And I don't really want to leave not planting my broad beans much longer. So what I think I might do is to rake back the compost that I put on, plant the broad beans, and then rake it back over. But oh dear, what a foolish thing. Never mind, but I'll swing you around because whilst I couldn't do the broad beans, we've been trimming the gooseberries, and I've put a layer of cardboard down and mulched it with some wood chip, which absolutely killed me, but it looks very good now. So I'm going to put up a frame later on, not today, but later on in the week, or maybe next week, so that when the gooseberries come along, that we'll be able to net them better, because the last couple of times we've netted them just slightly over the height of the gooseberries, but then we discovered the pigeons just came and sat on it and pushed it down, and then was able to eat the gooseberries. So I'm hoping that we will foil them, but it's looking very nice, so I'm pleased that I managed to get this job done before. It's almost the end of October, and I put these beans in just as a late crop, but I don't know if you can see them. Can you see how many beans there are on this? This is a absolutely extra bonus here, a Brucey bonus. So I shall pick these today, and because if the frost comes and takes them out, then I'm not going to cry, because we've had a good crop from these last few beans. Well, that's not a bad haul from those few plants at the end of October. I was going to take them all out and finish clearing this area up until the celeriac there and plant field beans in, and then just cover it with some compost, but I'm not going to pull these beans out now. I'm going to leave them and just clear this space, plant with field beans on both sides of the celeriac because there's space, just to cover it up for winter, and put the field beans in that will give some green manure for next year. So wonderful, that's not bad. It's a variety called Compass. I really call them backache beans because my heavens, do they give me backache when I'm picking them. But I keep growing them because they are so reliable. They're delicious, they're reliable, they come early, they stay late, they give a heavy crop, but they do give you backache picking them. So I suppose that's the penance for such a good bean. We've had a couple of nights of frost, which I hadn't realised was forecast. I'm not quite sure that it was actually, because when I looked at the weather at night, the temperatures weren't dropping that low. But hey, we've had some frost, so it has done some damage. So I'm going to be spending a little bit of time sorting that out and taking some of the root crops home. But I planted my field beans now, and I talk about field beans. I did a previous vlog about field beans, and because we're no dig, and I'm learning more and more about soil health and the importance of having crops on the ground or covering your soil and not digging it, and encouraging the microorganisms and the fungi and all the things that live in the soil to help them develop and keep them healthy, which gives healthy crops. And certainly from my experience of growing on this allotment, no dig and organically, our crops have been very healthy. They do succumb to some of the pests and things, but on the whole they look really healthy. And that's why really I put a cover crop, or they call it a cover crop, in of field beans. And some people use all sorts of things like grasses or other kind of herbs and vegetation that they dig in, but I actually think that that's a much harder way of managing the no-dig beds. And I prefer the field beans, because it's easier to plant, and also you get an edible crop from it, as well as covering the soil and giving it extra nitrogen, because you leave the roots in. And by having something in the ground, it keeps the soil health going as well. So it feels like an all-round win. And I also don't have to worry about making sure that I cut the crops down and dig it into the soil a few weeks before I plant. I've tried it once before and I really didn't get on with that method, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are really successful in using other sorts of cover crops, but it felt to me like it was too hard work. Had to do a lot of planning to make sure everything was rotted down before I planted, and personally I like maximum output for minimum work. So field beans has been my saviour really. So have a think, if you've got some ground that isn't being covered or it's just bare soil, think about putting a cover crop such as field beans in, because it will certainly help and improve your soil health. So the frost has knocked out our oca. You can see the top growth is completely frosted and yucky. So I'm going to take off all of this growth, chop it down, put it into the compost, and I'm going to lift one or two of these plants to see if there's anything there. I've also got about a third of a bed, if that, of some carrots. So I'm going to take those out as well, take what we need home, and then put some into storage, and then hopefully by the end of today I will have cleared this patch. There's our pumpkin from Halloween on the compost. Sad looking thing now, but at least it'll be going back into the soil, and on top of that I shall put all the oca debris. So that's the foliage all cut down, and now I'm going to just lift one or two of these. The ones with the red stems are red or pink, I think, oca, and these ones should be a yellow oca. But we'll dig one of each up, see if there's anything under there. So, whoa. They're still fairly small, but I did plant them late, so I'm not too surprised. I should just there's a few nice ones on here. Look at that. They're quite underdeveloped, as normally I wouldn't lift them yet. So I'm surprised about having such an early frost. So now I've chopped the top growth down, I think I'll just leave the rest of the plants in there. But I shall take these, they're lovely raw or cooked or roasted. But yeah, I'll take these, sort them out, give them a wash, and then I'll leave the rest of the plants in the ground, I think. See if they'll fatten up anymore. So I'm lifting the last bit of this carrot bed up. You can see that there's some big carrots, but I know from lifting some of these up the other day, there's lots of slugs and snails also enjoying the carrots. So I shall take what I can up, take some home and put some into store in the shed on the allotment. Well, the mice have been in already and started to eat the carrots, so it's a good thing I'm taking them out. Let's see what's under here. I mean, some of them are really nice, and I'm not going to wash them before I put them into store. Look, that one's been eaten as well. That's the carrots lifted, and I must say there's a lot of them, all colours, shapes and sizes. Some are really good, and I think will store nicely. So I shall just go through them all. Any that are slightly damaged I'll take home, and those that are good for storing I'm going to store. This is some of the ones that are left from Mickey Mouse and Roland Rat. I've got a box down here and some wood chip that I shall put in the bottom. I've never stored carrots before, so I'm just doing it the way I store my beetroot for the winter. I don't know whether that's right or wrong, so don't necessarily follow what I'm doing. I'm just doing it because, partly because we've never had carrots. We've never had carrots this, well, we've never really had that many carrots at all, never mind some to be able to store, and some that are this big. So this was one of my nemesis, which I think that I've actually cracked. So I'm going to store them this way anyway. There's nothing lost. When I get home I'll have a little look and look it up how best to store them, but this will do. I'm not going to wash the ones I'm going to store, but I will wash the ones I'm taking home, because I don't like to take much or if any soil home, because on the allotment we have got things like white rot, and I'm sure we've got other things, weeds and stuff, so I don't want it to contaminate the garden at home. So I shall wash off what I'm not going to store here, store these, and I'll show you them at the end. The asparagus is starting to yellow. Once it's completely gone yellow, we'll cut it down. But for now, it's taking all the goodness and nutrients back into the roots for next year. So once it's all down, we'll be able to cut it down. We don't put this on the compost because sometimes it has asparagus beetle in it, the larvae. So we tend to put it either on the fire that the allotment has, or we bag it up and take it home and put it in the brown bin at home, council compost. And then we give it a really good weed, an autumn feed, cover it with a good layer of mulch, and wait until next year till the beautiful delicious asparagus pop up. But we'll show you that task a little later when we get to doing this job. So wherever you are, I hope you've enjoyed today. Happy gardening and planning, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.